all sorts of great stuff happening in the world of sports. But I want to start with these new college football playoff rankings that are simply just wrong. I mean, just it's incredible to me how wrong these college football playoff rankings are. Kevin Potts is going to join the show at 11 o'clock, and we're going to talk about the playoff rankings. We're also going to get a little bit into potential quarterback prospects, because I know that the Colts say that they're committed to Anthony Richardson, but I don't think any of us really believe that. But the college football playoff rankings came out, and they're just wrong. Teams should be rewarded for playing against other good teams, not punished. That is something that should always be true. Like we should encourage good teams to play against other good teams. That way that the regular season product is still good. As of right now, if I was an athletic director of any school, I would simply not play anybody good and hope that my conference schedule that year was easy, because those are the teams that are benefiting the most right now. The fact that Penn State is ranked 4th is simply absurd. Their best wins Illinois, and they only won by 14. Okay, Indiana being ranked 5th, I'm fine with. I did my own personal college football playoff rankings yesterday. I had Indiana at 5 because at least they're consistently blowing out the bad teams that they're playing. Penn State's not doing that. The fact that Penn State is ranked in front of Indiana is just wrong. Okay, not only is Indiana undefeated, and, not only have they blown out bad teams, unlike Penn State, but we've seen Penn State on the same football field as the number 2 ranked team in the country. The gap between the second best team in the country and the 4th best team in the country should be pretty small. And if you watch Penn State play Ohio State, there is a valley between Penn State and Ohio State. Right? And Penn State lost that game at home. It's not even like they went on the road to Columbus like Indiana is going to do, not this Saturday, but next. That game was not close. Penn State shouldn't be anywhere near the top 4. If you want to tell me, that they should still be in the top 12, that's fine. I'm willing to live with that, but 4th is simply absurd. And as I sit here and I talk about Penn State, I'm sure I'm getting questions about Texas. Well, Jonathan, what about Texas? Well, Texas checks the same box as Indiana. They've blown out every bad team that they've played. They also deserve to be ranked that high because they're sitting atop the SEC, the best conference in college football. Okay? If you're at the top of the best conference in the sport, like the SEC is, and I'm sure this is Big Ten territory, and, me being from the South, I'm sure I'll get accused of the SEC bias, but at the end of the day, the College Football Playoff Committee decided to rank 9 SEC teams yet last night, and they only decided to rank 4 Big Ten teams, and that's it. The SEC is the deeper and better conference. That's why Texas is ranked 3rd, and that's why Tennessee, frankly, should be ranked 4th. Okay, because I'm a huge believer, and we should reward teams for beating other good teams. We shouldn't reward teams like Penn State, who haven't beaten anybody good, and when they had a chance to, they got beat. Like Penn State shouldn't be ranked in front of Tennessee because Tennessee's win over Alabama is miles better than anything Penn State has on their resume. Tennessee should be ranked in front of Indiana because that win over Alabama is miles better than anything that Indiana has on their resume. Plus, eye test-wise, if you just sit back and you watch how they play football, the difference between Penn State, Indiana, and Tennessee really isn't there. Tennessee is simply ranked too low. When you look at teams like Penn State and Indiana, they don't have a win over a single ranked team. Now, once again, with Indiana, I've got no issue with them being 5th. It's probably where they should be, given how dominant they've been against bad teams. Penn State, they haven't been. They don't have a win over a ranked team. They haven't crushed bad teams. And eye test-wise, they don't look that great. The defense is good, but offensively, they aren't as good as any of the top teams in the country. The idea that they're the 4th best team in all of college football is insane to me. So Penn State ranked too high. Tennessee should be ranked higher. Notre Dame. Indiana being ranked fifth. I think that's honestly the perfect spot for them in terms of big picture stuff. I don't think Indiana could be ranked in a better spot than fifth. I've got more on that here in a moment. I want to keep working through these rankings. The next thing that really upset me, Miami and Notre Dame being ranked in front of Alabama is just absurd. It's simply absurd. Miami beat Louisville, the 19th ranked team in the college football playoff rankings, by 7. That's their best win. Notre Dame beat Louisville by 7, and they beat 15th ranked Texas A&M on the road by 14. Those are good wins. Do not mishear me when I say this. But those things don't come anywhere close to what Alabama's done. They beat Georgia by 7. They beat South Carolina, who's ranked. They beat Missouri, who's ranked by 34. And they just beat LSU, who's ranked by 29. Those wins combined are better than anything Miami and Notre Dame have done. And the losses that Alabama has suffered to Vanderbilt and Tennessee aren't as bad as Miami's loss to Georgia Tech, who they were double-digit favored against. And they're not as bad as Notre Dame's loss to Northern Illinois, a game that they lost at home. The fact that those two teams are ranked in front of Alabama is simply insane. Once again, teams should be rewarded for playing against other good teams, not punished for it. And that's what we're seeing happen right now so far with these college football playoff rankings. I get it. Records should matter, but who you play and who you beat and who you lose to should matter even more. Once again, as annoying as all those things are, as annoying as it is that Tennessee's ranked, in my opinion, too low, and that Penn State is ranked too high, and Miami and Notre Dame, the fact that Miami's even in the top 12 is absurd to me, especially when you look at SMU, who I'm going to talk about here in a second. The fact that Miami and Notre Dame are ranked higher than Alabama, as annoying as all those things are, you can make a case for them. But SMU not being in the top 12 is the most insane thing that happened last night. They're at the top of the ACC. They're 8-1 with their one loss to BYU, who's ranked 6th. Their one loss is to BYU, and they lost by 3. That is not a bad loss. That's a better loss than what Notre Dame has, and that's a better loss than what Miami has. And SMU's best win, like Notre Dame and Miami, is against Louisville, who they also beat by 7. So can someone just please take the time to explain to me, like I'm a child, how they're ranked 14th, SMU is, with the same best win by the exact same margin as Miami and Notre Dame, and their one loss isn't nearly as bad as either one of theirs. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And the College Football Playoff Committee needs to do a better job of not ranking teams based off of their names and records. Yes, record matters, but who you beat should matter even more. And who beats you should matter even more. Like Alabama's 7-2 because of who they've beaten is more impressive than Miami's and Notre Dame's 8-1s. Just is. Okay, Tennessee's, I think they're 8-1. They might be 9-1, but their 8-1 and 9-1 is more impressive than Penn State's 8-1 because of who they've beaten. Like, those things should matter, and the College Football Playoff Committee needs to do a better job of not ranking solely based off of names and records. Miami wasn't named Miami, they wouldn't be ranked in the top 12. You say, well, Jonathan, how do you know that? Because SMU's not ranked in the top 12, and they're not named Miami, and their resumes are very similar. And even though SMU's is better, it's just it's incredible to me. Like, I'm not going to say that they're going to make college football worse, because I think that'd be hyperbole. But the way that the playoff committee is doing these rankings, it is encouraging teams to play soft schedules, and I don't want that. Like, it is so much fun on Saturdays to sit down and watch Ohio State go to Oregon, or watching Texas go to Michigan before the year started. Like that's fun. And teams should be encouraged to schedule tough, hard, non-conference games. And I think the best way to do that is to have a college football playoff committee that rewards teams for playing against good teams and doesn't punish them when they lose. Okay, if I was an athletic director, I wouldn't schedule any tough games whatsoever because the College Football Playoff Committee has made it abundantly clear that you can beat bad teams. It doesn't matter if you beat them by 30 or if you beat them by 7, you're going to be ranked really high. And you're going to get rewarded just the same as a team like Alabama beating, 4 ranked teams and losing to 2 good teams. So I don't know. I've got a lot of issues with what happened last night. I can't really. It doesn't make sense. The fact that Georgia isn't ranked in the top, or I think they're ranked 12th, but if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't be in. Like, that's absurd. Like, if you had to bet money on Georgia against Notre Dame, I think most people would bet Georgia. If you had to bet money on Georgia versus Miami, I think most people would bet Georgia. And if Georgia played Penn State, I think most people would bet Georgia. Like they're clearly one of the 12 best teams in the country. And that is the whole goal of the playoff, is it not? Is the goal of the playoff not to find the 12 best teams? Or I guess, the 5 conference champions and then your 7 other best teams? Is that not the goal of it? That should be the goal. Like what are we ranking here? We're supposed to rank the best teams. And I don't feel like the College Football Playoff Committee did that last night. They ranked the best records. That's ultimately what they did. They ranked the best records combined with the best name brands. And it's just fundamentally wrong. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Indiana, I'm done complaining for the moment. I'm sure I'll complain a little bit more with Kevin Potts, who's going to join me at 11 o'clock. Indiana's ranked 5th, and that's awesome for them. They ended up in a fantastic spot. They've got 2 games left, and I'm convinced that as long as they don't lose to Purdue, they're going to wind up in the college football playoff. They go 11-1 and they lose to Ohio State, they're going to be in. Okay, obviously they want to beat Ohio State. Obviously they want to win the Big Ten title. That way they can earn a bye. Like that would be the best thing for them. But the College Football Playoff Committee has set the precedent that if you lose to Ohio State, you will not be penalized for it. Penn State has lost 1 game. Penn State has not looked as good as Indiana. Penn State has not blown out bad teams with the exception of Kent State, and they are still ranked 4th. That loss to Ohio State at home has done nothing to Penn State. And so for Indiana, I'm expecting, it's not going to happen, but I'm expecting for the College Football Playoff Committee to have the same rules apply to Indiana. If Indiana loses to Ohio State, they shouldn't drop based on the precedent that the committee created with Penn State's loss to Ohio State. And if they do drop, because they probably will, because they'll be like, ooh, you're no longer undefeated, they should drop to 7th at most. And that is within the top 7 at-large bid slots. So as long as they don't drop past 7, if they lose to Ohio State, like they're going to make the college football playoff. They should have a chance to host a college football playoff game as long as they don't lose to Purdue. They shouldn't lose to Purdue. I'd be absolutely stunned if they did, but rivalry games are weird. That's why they're fun to watch and all those things. So they're going to make the college football playoff, which is awesome. As long as they don't lose to Purdue, crazier things have happened, but they should make the first edition of the 12-team college football playoff. And you can't start the Curt Cignetti era any better than that. So congrats to Indiana. As much as I've complained about, it should be more about who you beat. I do think Indiana's worthy of being ranked 5th because of how badly they've beaten all of the bad teams that they've played. Whereas other teams like Miami, Penn State, Notre Dame, I just don't feel the same way about. So congrats to Indiana. It looks like they're headed to the college football playoff.